Usually the waiver wire is pretty barren this time of year, but with the amount of injuries that we had this week, there are actually a ton of options, especially at running back, that are going to be viable. Now, I do want to just lead off with a couple updates on players that are rostered in more than 50% of leagues, so we can't exactly call them waiver wire pickups. But Dameon Pierce is a player that I said to drop about a month, maybe 5 weeks ago, saying the upside wasn't really there, that it looked like with the injury and Devin Singletary's workload that he was going to be capped in this offense. Well, now Dameon Pierce comes out. He does play only 26 snaps compared to Devin Singletary at 31. Probably not starting either running back at this time, with this looking to be a 50-50 backfield split. But considering the usage that we are seeing, I do think that both running backs should be rostered in case the other guy were to get injured. Then at that point, you could go through and start them. So while yes, I apologize for saying Pierce was that guy to drop about 5 weeks back, now I think if he's out there on your waiver wire, he will be an interesting pickup if you can. Now going over to Antonio Gibson. Gibson is a running back that technically can't be a waiver wire pick. He's rostered in 56% of leagues, but of course I have to talk about him, especially for those leagues that are like 8-team leagues, right? And here, this is a running back that doesn't necessarily have a single week this season where he looks great from a fantasy perspective. Now, the main reason for this is he has 0 rushing touchdowns on the year. Now, is that because Antonio Gibson's bum? No, it's primarily because the Brian Robinson usage. And of course, Brian Robinson had been the guy getting involved between the tackles. That's why Gibson only has 46 carries this season in comparison to 44 targets. Before this week, Antonio Gibson had more targets than he had carries. But we go back to previous seasons, we have seen that Antonio Gibson does have the frame where he can be used on first and second downs. And if you are looking at what happened after Brian Robinson went down with the hamstring, you did have Antonio Gibson playing 20 snaps on early downs in comparison to Chris Rodriguez at 7. It looks like Chris Rodriguez will not be the guy between the tackles filling for Brian Robinson. This makes sense if you look at who Chris Rodriguez is. And Antonio Gibson, especially in a full PPR format, will be a viable pickup and maybe the second best pickup this week, even if he is rostered in 56% of leagues. Now, Tajee Spears is that other guy that we have to talk about. I mean, we just injuries galore this week. Derrick Henry goes down. With Tajee Spears, he steps in, and the opportunity is great, right? I mean, he plays every single snap that Derrick Henry doesn't in this game. He sees 16 carries, which is a career high. He has 6 targets out of the backfield, which ties his career high. And honestly, he looks great while doing so. I mean, if you watch this game, there were some plays where the defender was in the backfield, should have been a tackle for a loss, but Tajee Spears was able to make a quick move, was able to get past the line of scrimmage and turn what should have been a 3-yard loss into a 3-yard gain. Obviously, what I care most is the opportunity, and the opportunity should be there if Derrick Henry misses any time, especially as a receiver, where Tajee Spears has had 46 targets this season, even with a healthy Henry. So both Antonio Gibson as well as Tajee Spears are premium pickups, but most importantly, they're the pickups for your PPR format. Going over to a running back that maybe you're a little bit more excited about in your non-PPR league, let's look at Ezekiel Elliott. Now, with Zeke rostered in 40% of leagues currently, this is a running back that should be stepping into the starting role with no Ramondre Stevenson. And the main thing that I want to look at with Ezekiel Elliott is not necessarily what we've seen this season. I mean, we can't talk about it. He's been a very inefficient running back, right? I'm not going to sit here and try to act like Ezekiel Elliott's some great talent. Of course he's not, at least at this point of his career. He's averaged 3.8 yards per carry. He's in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. So from a fantasy point per touch perspective, you should expect Ezekiel Elliott to be near the bottom of the NFL at the running back position. However, the amount of touches that you should pencil him in for should be 20 plus a game with no Ramondre Stevenson. If we go through and look at running backs to have touches for the New England Patriots this season, you have Ramondre Stevenson with 147 carries. You have Ezekiel Elliott with 95 carries. Outside of that, Mac Jones, Demario Douglas, Ty Montgomery, Kendrick Bourne, Tyquan Thornton, no other running back. Those are the only 2 running backs the Patriots have been using. Now, do I expect Ezekiel Elliott to have 100% of the touches. No. Of course, they'll have another running back active. Ezekiel Elliott's not going to see legitimately 100% of the snaps, 100% touch. He just simply can't at this point of his NFL career. But Ezekiel Elliott can definitely go out there and he can definitely see about 75%, right? And honestly, that will make him a borderline play here for us. Now, going over to the Philly backfield, Kenneth Gainwell actually played more snaps this week than DeAndre Swift. And I understand a lot of people are going to say, oh, okay, well, that means we should go pick up Gainwell, right? Especially with Swift getting banged up at the end of the game. No, in reality, I mean, if you wanted to roster Kenneth Gainwell, just in case DeAndre Swift were to miss any time, you can go ahead and do that. But don't overreact here. Don't think that Gainwell is taking over as the starting running back in Philly. Just a super weird game environment where they get blown out. The Eagles aren't really going to be getting blown out very often. I would imagine it doesn't happen again this season. So yeah, don't really look at the running back usage. I think Gainwell can be a pickup as a premium handcuff back in case DeAndre Swift were to miss time, but he's not a running back that's going to be viable with a healthy DeAndre Swift. Now let's look at a running back that did not play today. It was on bye, but Roshan Johnson does kind of look like he's coming on at the end of the year. I think that he's a player that's worth rostering, where the week before the bye, he has 10 carries. He has 5 targets out of the backfield. Obviously, the selling point on Roshan is his pass blocking ability, which is going to get him on the field for third downs and hopefully give him the receiving upside. Now, I'm not going to tell you to go pick up Roshan and that he's going to be startable immediately. The reality of the situation is probably going to be a 3-man running back by committee. I do think that he is rosterable at the very bottom end just to see what happens coming out of the bye, because maybe the usage is a little bit different than we expect. And then DJ Dallas, do not pick him up unless we have 2 things happening. One, early on in the week, we get reports that you are most likely going to have no Zach Charbonnet and no Kenneth Walker. If either one of those running backs will be good to go, then I have zero interest in DJ Dallas. But as it stands today, you do have both those players banged up. You do have a path for DJ Dallas to maybe being the only running back in Seattle. Now, I will say, going up against the Niners this week, so probably wouldn't start him anyway. So definitely the least viable running back pickup here before we move over to wide receivers. But as we pull up the wide receivers, I do want to point out a wide receiver playing tonight in Calvin Ridley, where Underdog has this pick him at 57.5 receiving yards. I'm going to be going with fewer than 57.5 receiving yards for Calvin Ridley on Underdog Fantasy. If you want to tell me on that, you can find the link in the description in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, 100% deposit match, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers, and a Trevor Lawrence special pick on more than less than half a total yard for the Monday night game as well. But going over to the wide receivers, I want to start off with Elijah Moore. And then Elijah Moore has had now a month-long straight of seeing a ton of volume in this offense in Cleveland. 7 targets, 9 targets, and 12 targets. Now you also have Amari Cooper dealing with a concussion, so you may end up seeing Elijah Moore just actually drawing more targets than he was 2 to 3 weeks ago. So the volume is going to be consistently there. The only hesitation is, okay, well, Joe Flacco is your quarterback, so you may be severely capped just based off what we have from a, overall offensive standpoint. But Elijah Moore's a talented player seeing volume, so even if he's in a horrible offense, I think you can make an argument for him to be worth a roster spot. Now, going over to Noah Brown, while I understand, Noah Brown didn't really do anything his first week back, right? He only had 2 targets, 0 receptions, 0 receiving yards. Now that Tank Dell is out for the season, I do think that Noah Brown's viable, and it's kind of funny because on the Sunday morning live stream, I was telling people, oh no, don't bother picking up Noah Brown before this game. There's no way he's going to turn into an every week starter with Tank Dell and Nico Collins at him. You remove Tank Dell from this offense, then obviously that situation does change. If you just look at the raw amount of points that you were getting from CJ Stroud here in Houston, it's ridiculous every single week. Obviously, Nico Collins gives you the blow up week here, but I don't know how predictive that is going to be going forward. Jonathan Mingo will be a wide receiver that I do want to point out for very deep leagues. Now, I'm not going to tell you to go out there and pick up Jonathan Mingo in your 10-team league with 6 bench spots. Of course, you're not wasting a spot on him there. But this is a wide receiver that now sees 10 targets. Last week he had 6. The week prior he had 6. The week prior he had 7. So Mingo's a young rookie wide receiver that had some positives to his prospect profile, averaging about 7 targets per game over the past month. And obviously, Adam Thielen has looked like he's on the straight decline. The ultimate issue, though, is just how bad this offense is going to be. Now, a tight end that I really wasn't excited to start this week, but I think maybe I will be changing my tune on just a bit here, will be Brevin Jordan, in that you have no Dalton Schultz. So Jordan does come out. He solidifies himself as the tight end 1 here. He has 64 receiving yards off of 4 targets. Now, obviously, if Dalton Schultz is going to be good to go this next week, you have no interest in Brevin Jordan. But now we have confirmation that Jordan's the tight end 1. And with no Tank Dell, there are just more targets to go around. It's not only going to help Nico Collins. It's not only going to help Noah Brown. It's also going to be spread around to the tight end position here, where someone like Brevin Jordan will be more viable as well, where I think you can go out there and pick him up. Now, it's very important to just make sure our starting lineups are top tier as we head into the playoffs. I'm assuming most of us have 1 week left of the regular season, and then the playoffs start in weeks 15, 16, 17. Please let me know in the comment section what the situation is for your own playoffs. But I do want to focus in on these defensive matchups while we can. The first defensive streamer I want to lay out will be the Houston Texans. The Texans are going to be going up against the New York Jets. The Jets currently have an implied team total of 15.25 points. Obviously, these Vegas lines just dropped, so I wouldn't be surprised if this just has a little bit of movement at the beginning of the week. But you can safely say the Jets are going to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL going forward. I mean, they have been all year. And at the same time, if you're looking at what we have with the Texans offense, I do like the fact that they should be able to get out to a large lead early, forcing the hand of the New York Jets, where they are going to have to be throwing the ball in the second half so we can generate sacks and generate turnovers. The New Orleans Saints will be our next defensive streamer. They are rostered in 42% of leagues. They're going up against the Carolina Panthers, where the Panthers have an implied team total of 16 points. And obviously, Bryce Young just looks to be a bottom 3 quarterback in the NFL, at least year 1. Obviously, that may change going into the future. And then our last defensive streamer will be the Indianapolis Colts. Rostered in 31% of leagues, they're going to be going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's monitor what the Bengals offense does on Monday night. As of right now, we do not have an updated sportsbook line for week 14 for this game, but I'm assuming we'll get that on Tuesday. What we have as of today is the Cincinnati Bengals having the lowest implied team total of any team in the NFL in week 13, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I think Vegas is telling us how bad this offense is going to be. And also in this Jags game, I'll remind you, because the Jags should be just boat racing the Bengals, we are going to be going fewer than 57.5 receiving yards on Calvin Ridley. And if you want to tell us with that, link in the description, link in the comment section, promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. You'll also get a 100% deposit match and our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. Really wishing the best of luck here as we gear up for the fantasy football playoffs, and really hope I get to see you out with a live stream later tonight.